Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to another video. Pragmatic Addict here. So, I know it's been a little bit of time. I needed a little bit of a break just because I'm going to be getting into a lot of videos, and this specific video, I had to prep for this one. So, on my last video, I actually announced that I was going to be doing a little bit of a different review with Saint Maud, that I'm going to actually be doing an analysis. So, I rewatched this one enough, and you know, this is kind of a different kind of, I guess, analysis video. You see, the first time I watched the movie, I didn't really know what I thought of it, and I needed to rewatch it again before I actually dropped any sort of review. And then the second time I watched it, I knew how I felt about it, but then there came that thought of, wow, I really want to talk about shit, so I want to take notes, and I want to maybe even do an analysis for this specific sort of film. So now watching it a third time and taking, you know, a lot of thought about it and giving it enough time, so there are some points I want to make. So what I'm going to basically be doing is I'm going to be doing my standard review for the most part, but I have points taken that I do want to talk about, that I do want to discuss, because I think that this film is very well made. I'm going to say that really quickly. And it's, you know, it's not every day that I watch a movie, you know, even if it's something I'm really anticipating and I go, wow, I really need to take notes on this. No, I steered away from that, I believe, for the most part. And when I was watching this one, you know, when I really took it all in after the second viewing, I knew that it was something I had to do, and that tells me something. So without further ado, let's get on with this intro and get on with this review. So before I go actually into the review, I'm just going to say what the film basically focuses on. So the film is about a nurse named Saint Maud, whose most recent patient is actually a former celebrity and dancer named Amanda. So Amanda has cancer and is dying. I know that sounds very bleak, but it's the way that the film is. The film's a bleak movie, but Nurse Maud, or Saint Maud, comes to look after this woman as she battles cancer and becomes her caretaker. So the story is that Saint Maud feels like she has a calling to this woman to save her, to redeem her before she passes on. And that's basically the story, except, you know, obviously ignoring the facts that, well, within the story, this character, Saint Maud, is a fucking Looney Tune. She's a very spiritual woman, and she has, you know, again, she's not like your normal caretaker who just, you know, has, you know, a passion for this woman, or, you know, who sees something in this woman, or is just another patient. She feels like she has a calling to her to save her soul. And again, this character, Saint Maud, she's a very quiet, very religious, very I wouldn't say maintained. Ooh, I would not say maintained, but she's a very distant character. And the points that I was talking about earlier that I really want to talk about in this movie is trauma, losing faith, losing sense of humanity, madness, and redemption. And then there's a few side points that I wanted to discuss as well, which is perspective and narration, as well as hallucination, and finally, manipulation. So right off the bat, I'm just going to get into these kind of plot points and discuss how I feel about the film while I'm going down this list. So trauma. So at the beginning of the film, we get a opening shot of Saint Maud cowering in a corner, in trauma, in shock, looking back at a body. Now, she's covered in blood. We don't know the whole story, but there's some roaches that are crawling on the ceiling. And the way that she kind of reacts to this roach, or to even the surroundings, yes, while she is in shock and she is in trauma, the way that she just reacts to the overall setting as, you know, the scene concludes, made me like really want to know not just what happened, like, obviously, but what part of this situation did she have a part in. And that actually leads into the film's overall story. The next patient, who is dying, she has this calling to want to feel like the need to save her soul, and I'm trying to figure out why. What about this character makes her, you know, feel this type of calling? So as I watched this movie, or at least the fucking 3 times that I did, I realized something, and something came to me. While we don't see very much background to the very first shot of this movie that I was just discussing. But I'm gonna try and make this as like small of a spoiler review as possible. But maybe while the journey that we see of her taking care of Amanda and their relationship and how this concludes, which I'm not going to spoil entirely, or try not to, maybe this is something that was attempted in the patient that we saw at the beginning. Because of that situation, you know, how she felt after it and what it maybe even did to her, again, going into trauma, leads her into my second point, losing faith. So throughout the movie, we see Saint Maud trying to save this woman's soul. She's trying to distance her from certain people and from certain situations, and we see that the relationship between these two characters, because of that, it makes it very uneasy, very unnerving. And what I like about this movie is that it does that in a very realistic way. You know, as Amanda's caretaker, you know, there's gonna be, you know, obviously that middle ground where, you know, you are gonna, you know, learn about each other and accept each other and kind of, you know, build that bond, you know, to an extent. But because of the specific reason that Saint Maud is coming to Amanda, that draws a lot of attention and makes for a really, you know, interesting film. Yes, without getting too sidetracked, losing faith. So I think that because of that situation, she feels like she needs to redeem herself into this patient, you know, this specific person who is a former celebrity, who is, you know, at the end of her days and at the end of her life. I feel like her main purpose is to redeem her faith. And because of, again, that previous patient, she is losing that faith. And so throughout this movie, you see her kind of talking to what could be God or what could be a higher power. Though the things that she is doing, the way that she is changing throughout these events and this situation and this time, we see her not really going to a positive level. We see her kind of deteriorating, kind of, you know, to my third point, losing her sense of humanity. To see her just kind of falling and collapsing and just really turning into this being that really, you know, we wouldn't want to see. Without going, you know, into all the points, even though I'm halfway through them now, I just gotta say a very solid line of how I overall see this movie. This character is suffering from trauma, from trying to save someone's soul and failing, possibly. So now she goes to this patient who is, you know, someone who is very, you know, famous, and, you know, she's a former celebrity, and she is dying, and she wants to save her soul and redeem, you know, her own self because of the past. And as she deals with that, I think there's a lot of, you know, again, trauma and a lot of guilt and a lot of, you know, like she feels like she's not worthy enough, or like she failed, and because of that, you know, she could also be losing her faith and descending into madness. This is a very psychological film, and this is why I felt like I needed to, you know, to do this type of review. Not just because of how much goes into it, but I'm a very spiritual person. I come from a Christian background. I was, you know, grew up with faith, and a lot of movies I write or want to write focus on death. I get this premise and I fucking respect it, and that's why I love A24 so much, because they always focus on this and they always do it so fucking well, but also so uniquely. So now that I've gone through my main points, you know, redemption and madness and trauma and losing faith in humanity, I want to go into a couple side points, which the first one of that is narration as well as perspective and possible hallucinations. So the movie, which I didn't realize until like the second viewing, but it's actually told through her narrative, and it does that so well because you don't even realize it's there. It just plays into the uneasiness of the film, because we're seeing it play on, but as she's speaking it, she's not really telling the story. She's kind of speaking her thoughts, which, you know, aren't exactly very clear at times, but aren't exactly welcoming as well. And that is actually, now that I think about it, like one of my favorite things about the film is that I won't say that a lot of films do this, but a lot of films don't do it like this. You know, a horror movie with this sort of premise, with this sort of, you know, perspective, again, what I'm going into. And a lot of the film, there's a lot that goes on, you know. Again, throughout the story, at least what is shown to the viewer and who we see this character becoming or trying to be, is that she's, you know, trying to save someone's soul, and she is, you know, a saint. But as going back to what I said earlier, you know, descending into madness and losing faith, you start to realize that maybe it's not God who she's talking to. Maybe it's, whoops, down there. We start to see things like possession and, again, just falling into madness and a lot of things that could be, hallucinations. She's levitating and committing murder and she's seeing things. Again, the cockroaches at the very, very beginning. As shit unfolds and, collapses even more, we start seeing, these roaches and different things that, aren't of God, that aren't godly, but of the other side. And essentially, what happens throughout the story is that, I'm not going to spoil the end, but I'm going to try and explain it, in my opinion, without exactly spoiling it. So by the end of the movie, we actually see, how far she's come and, a final test that she sees, from whatever she's, she's bowing to. Again, it's not God. It's not God. But we see, I guess, why her character led to this level. And I guess why she's, trying to save the soul. I think a lot of the story is also, which is my final point, manipulation. She has trauma. She loses her faith. And because of that, she's trying to redeem herself. And she's doing it with this person, with this celebrity. And the celebrity's not fucking having it. Which is also one of my side notes. The celebrity actually kind of uses this character. She gives Saint Maud what she wants because she's trying to have fun with her, She feels sorry for her, and this is a very important part of the movie. There's a tension before, before a scene where her and Amanda actually collide and collapse in one of the scenes. She says, Saint Maud says to Amanda, "You're lost." That's the problem, you're lost. And that made me think by the end of the movie is maybe there's even some jealousy coming into play. Maybe Saint Maud is actually the one that is lost. Again, trauma, losing her faith, losing her sense of humanity, and descending into madness. And not only that, but this is actually going to be one of my final takes of the film. Bear with me. After all of this negativity, all of this drama, and all of this trauma, she is so desperate to bow to something, to have a purpose in her life. I think is what it is. She's trying to give herself reason to live, necessarily. And not only that, but she's trying to give herself one last thing to, I guess, not only be proud of, I guess, but she wants to do something, to give back to God because she was failing. And I believe that was an open door for the devil to kind of come in and manipulate her where she was kind of vulnerable. And that is another thing in the film. She says to certain people, well, Amanda's vulnerable and she's at the end of her days and she's not well. And I feel like a lot of that was kind of hinting and leading on to the final conclusion of the actual story, which, again, I'm not going to say any more about it because I want you guys to see this movie. This is a movie that I feel is not getting the recognition it deserves. And not only that, but it's not actually getting the praise that it deserves. This movie, in my opinion, which is going to sound weird because of the final grade I'm going to give it, but in a lot of aspects, in a lot of different and unique aspects, I would actually say that this film tops The Lighthouse and The Witch, which are both, good movies in my opinion, but wasn't quite of what Hereditary was. I feel like people are going to watch this movie and expect and prep themselves for something on the level of Hereditary, and it's not. Hereditary is something much further, which I want to analyze. I have said this in the past, but I have to, after this, I have to really make sure that I'm ready for Hereditary. It will happen one day, but yes, that is my opinion on Saint Maud, is that this girl is suffering through trauma. She wants redemption, so she goes to this patient who is, an actual challenge, and because of the failing past and because of, the bond that isn't necessarily working out with this patient, she loses her sense of faith, which drives her into madness and loses her sense of humanity and desperation, which opens a door for the devil to take the form of God and kind of, seduce her and manipulate her into doing something ungodly. Again, this is a very psychological based film, but it's very spiritual as well. And it gets a lot of shit right, and it made me think about a lot of things and really inspires me to do a lot of things in the future with my work. Overall, guys, I'm going to give Saint Maud a 7.4. I thought this movie was definitely good. I don't think it was something that really, blew me away, but it's something that continuously captured me. Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is that this feels like a minimal film. It is one of A24's shortest films. And there's a lot of things in the film that really felt reminiscent to other horror material. For example, M. Night Shyamalan's Servant, the whole layout of the film like heavily reminded me of that. Like that's all I was thinking of. And there's a lot of shots and a lot of different scenes in the movie that really felt like, you know, it was borrowing from The Witch. And you know, obviously, especially with this type of premise, it does kind of go hand in hand with that one. But overall, there's not really anything that I disliked about this film. What it mainly was is that it was so lower structured than I thought it would be. Again, going into what I was saying earlier, I feel like a lot of people are going to go into this movie expecting the next Hereditary, the next big banger from A24. And it's a good movie. It's definitely one that, you know, is absolutely asking for analyzation. Not everybody going into this movie is going to be, you know, spiritual or religious or whatever. People are just going to go in and saying, hey, you know, A24 dropping a horror movie, fuck you, I'm in. And it really does ask for knowledge. It asks for a lot of analyzation, asks for a lot of, you know, second, you know, opinions, like multiple viewings. And I think that that is where this movie is going to lose a lot of people. A lot of people who not only don't understand this, but, you know, are also, again, not religious or spiritual, are going to watch this movie one time and go, it wasn't The Witch, or, you know, Hereditary, or The Lighthouse, which, you know, again, are all thought-provoking films, but spiritual horror is something that I've always respected, but there's only a certain audience I think that can really not accept it, but or understand it. But there's a lot that, you know, there's only a certain audience that can actually, you know, take so much of it before they just, you know, get bored or get lost. And that's what I'm saying. If you are the type of viewer who is interested in that stuff, this film could do a lot for you. But if you're just going into this film expecting a fucked up horror movie because it's A24 and it's got, you know, a 90-some% on Rotten Tomatoes, you will be disappointed. So again, yes, I am giving it a sort of lower score, a 7.4, but still positive. There is still a lot that I liked about it. And the reason why I'm giving it, you know, something that's only good and not great or awesome is specifically because of the reasons I mentioned earlier. So guys, that is actually going to be my video for Saint Maud. I don't know how much I actually, you know, discussed in this, how much it actually, you know, hit you guys, but this is a film that, again, it is specifically for thought-provoking and, you know, analyzation. It's that kind of horror movie, and I don't know if I can get all the information I want in 3 fucking viewings, even though this movie's 85 minutes. But I definitely recommend this one, and again, if you guys are that audience that I discussed earlier, I feel like this is going to be one that you guys will really enjoy. I can't believe I fucking saw this movie. Finally! 2 fucking years, guys, and it did not disappoint. So guys, I know it's been about, you know, a week or more since I've actually dropped a video. Sorry, I had to really, you know, get this one right, really do it at the right time and everything, but I have a shitload of videos coming that I really want to talk about. You know, my next few Pragmatic Addict Gets Real episodes, as well as a 100 subscribers special video coming where I'm just, you know, talking about that and, you know, delving into, you know, how YouTube is now and how I kind of feel about it and what I've learned in my, you know, 1 year going on 2 years of actually doing this. So guys, yes, it has been a little bit of a halt, but I am back and I'm going to be doing a lot of videos coming very, very soon. So let me know what you guys thought of Saint Maud, and let me know what you guys thought of this kind of video. If you guys would like me to do more, if you guys thought that there was something I didn't touch up on enough, let me know. I'm all about the commentary. So I will see you guys in the next video, and definitely watch Saint Maud. Take care, guys. Thank you.